There's a war going on inside you. Not tomorrow, not in some distant battlefield. Right now, in your own head. Every time you snooze your alarm or flinch from pain, the enemy gains ground. Your heart's pounding. That's your limbic brain lighting you up with fear, trying to hijack your destiny. It wants you soft, scared, controlled. But here you are, caught in the crossfire, craving to break free. In the next few minutes, we'll arm you with the psychological weapons to fight back. This is science and spirit at war, and by the end, one of them is going to win. The limbic system lies deep in the brain, including key structures like the amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, and thalamus. Your limbic system is the ancient battlefield commander of your emotional nervous system, forged over millions of years of evolution. It's a small, deep region of the brain, but it wields enormous power over how you feel and react. The limbic system's job is survival. It floods you with instinctive drives to eat, seek safety, reproduce, whatever it takes to keep you alive. It is often called the emotional brain because it generates and regulates feelings from fear and anger to pleasure and desire. When something happens around you, the limbic system processes the raw information lightning fast and tells your body how to respond, even before you're consciously aware of what's going on. Think of the limbic system as your inner caveman or wild animal. It doesn't use language or logic. It speaks in the visceral dialect of hormones, heart rate, and raw impulse. If you touch a hot stove and yank your hand back without thinking, that's your limbic system in action. If you feel a surge of anger at an insult or butterflies on a first date, that's limbic fireworks too. It learns from experience, especially emotional memories, and stores those lessons so it can react even faster next time. This was crucial for your ancestors. Hear a rustle in the bushes, feel fear, jump back, maybe avoid the snake and live another day. But here's the double-edged sword. The same limbic reactions that kept early humans alive can wreak havoc in modern life. The limbic system is hair-trigger quick and doesn't wait for permission. It will launch a full-blown emotional response, pouring out adrenaline, spiking your blood pressure at any perceived threat, real or not. It can't tell the difference between a literal attacking tiger and a scathing email from your boss. To the limbic brain, stress is stress, fear is fear, and it hits hard and fast. This is the heart of a limbic hijack, when your emotional brain takes over the controls from your rational brain in an instant, slamming into fight or flight mode and leaving clear thinking behind. In the war within, the limbic system is like a ferocious berserker, immensely powerful, absolutely necessary at times, but liable to go rogue and turn a simple challenge into a life-or-death adrenaline drama. Amygdala hijack, when emotion overrides reason. If the limbic system is the battlefield, the amygdala is the sniper in the trees, a tiny almond-shaped cluster deep in your brain that shoots first and asks questions later. You have two amygdala, one in each brain hemisphere, and they act as your internal alarm system. The amygdala's primary role is to detect threats and spark fear or aggression. It's a central hub for emotions like anger, anxiety, and panic. When a potential danger appears, your amygdala can ignite the fight-or-flight response in a split second, dumping stress hormones into your bloodstream to fuel a burst of action. Crucially, it does this automatically, without asking your permission. The amygdala is like a reflex. It will light you up with fear before you even know what's happening. In evolutionary terms, this shoot-first strategy saved lives. If you encountered a saber-toothed tiger, you didn't want to analyze the situation. You wanted to react immediately. Even today, if a car swerves toward you, you'll likely jump aside before you fully process the danger. That's the amygdala hijacking your brain to save you. Psychologist Daniel Goleman coined the term amygdala hijack to describe this emotional takeover that happens under acute stress. It's characterized by three telltale signs: an intense emotional reaction, a rapid onset, and a sense of regret or realization afterward that your response was inappropriate. In other words, you snap in the heat of the moment, yell at someone you love, freeze up in fear, or make a reckless choice, and later wonder, what was I thinking? The truth is, in that moment you weren't thinking at all. Your amygdala had stormed the command center, disabling your frontal lobes, your logical brain, and seizing control. The result? Rationality goes out the window as your body surges with adrenaline and cortisol. Blood vessels constrict, heart pounding. You've been hijacked by emotion. We've all felt it. The sudden flash of rage in traffic, the icy paralysis during a high-stakes presentation, the overwhelming anxiety before a difficult conversation. These are modern ambushes by an ancient neural circuitry. Anger, aggression, fear, and stress are common triggers that can overwhelm the frontal lobes and unleash primitive reactions. In those hijacked moments, survival mode kicks in, even if the threat is just an insult, a deadline, or a fear of failure. Your brain doesn't care if the danger is physical or psychological. The amygdala only knows that something feels threatening, and it slams the red emergency button. The tragedy is that in modern life, these hair-trigger reactions often backfire. A cruel remark to a loved one, a panicked business decision, or giving up on a challenge in a moment of fear can all be self-sabotaging shots fired by your amygdala. Emotional hijack can cost you relationships, opportunities, and dignity. As one neuroscientist put it starkly, sometimes the hard battle that others are fighting is a neurological one. Have we both been hijacked? Recognizing an amygdala hijack as it happens is like realizing you're in a tailspin mid-flight. It's tough, but it's the first step to regaining control. The key is to understand that this intensity will pass, and your prefrontal cortex can come back online to correct course once the surge abates. In this war, learning to delay your reaction for even a few seconds, giving your rational brain a chance to step in, can mean the difference between self-control and self-destruction. Dopamine and the short-term fix. Not every enemy attack in this war is as obvious as a burst of anger or panic. Some are stealthier, creeping in under the guise of comfort and pleasure. Meet dopamine, a neurotransmitter often called the brain's reward chemical. Dopamine itself isn't evil. In fact, it's crucial for motivation and learning. But your brain's dopamine pathways can be hijacked too, leading you into behavioral traps that feel good in the moment while sabotaging you long-term. Here's the hard truth. Our brains evolved to prefer immediate rewards over delayed gratification. From an evolutionary standpoint, a bird in the hand, a quick reward, was worth two in the bush. Tomorrow was never guaranteed, so early humans were wired to grab pleasure and relief whenever available. Fast forward to modern life, and this wiring hasn't changed, but our environment has. Now we're surrounded by supernormal stimuli, endless junk food, instant entertainment, social media likes, all designed to give our brains quick hits of satisfaction. And we unwittingly become addicted to the instant dopamine drip. Research shows that an immediate reward triggers a stronger dopamine response in the brain than a larger reward that's only available later. This explains why, when you sit down to work on that business idea or study for an exam, you feel an almost gravitational pull toward quick distractions. Checking your phone, binging a show, snacking on sweets. Scrolling Instagram or YouTube for a few minutes lights up the brain's reward centers right now, whereas the reward of completing the hard task is far away and abstract. Each time you choose the immediate comfort over the difficult, delayed reward, you strengthen those neural pathways for short-term gratification. The result is a self-reinforcing loop. Feel stress or boredom, seek quick relief, feel momentarily better. Brain learns that avoidance, pleasure, Psychologists describe procrastination not as a time management failure, but as an emotion management strategy. You're not lazy, your brain is just dodging discomfort. In the moment, avoiding the hard thing relieves anxiety or frustration, a little dopamine reward, so the brain is rewarded for retreating. Do that often enough and you condition yourself to flee anytime things get hard without even realizing it. This is a subtle hijack, a slow death by comfort. It's the voice whispering, "You've had a long day, skip the gym, video games will feel good." Or, "This project is too stressful, check your email instead for a hit of productivity." Each time you get a dopamine candy for doing the easier thing, and your discipline muscle weakens. Over time, you can end up living in a haze of short-term pleasures, comfortable, entertained, well-fed, while your big goals languish. As David Goggins, the embodiment of mental toughness, warns, you are in danger of living a life so comfortable and soft that you will die without ever realizing your true potential. The science agrees. Each quick fix makes future self-sabotage more likely, because you're literally wiring your brain to default to the easy route. Dopamine isn't the bad guy here. Your habits are. The good news is that just as bad habits reinforce weakness, good habits can reinforce strength. You can learn to hack your dopamine system for growth by rewarding yourself for small victories on the hard road, rather than for running away. But before we get to retraining strategies, we need to examine the other traps that keep you locked in destructive loops, beyond just the lure of immediate pleasure. Trapped in loops: trauma, relationships, and suppressed emotions. Sometimes the war in your mind is being waged with old weapons, past traumas, childhood wounds, and long-held fears that keep firing on you in the present. When you experience trauma, especially in formative years, it leaves an imprint in your limbic system like a scar on the battlefield. Neuroscientists have found that trauma can essentially hijack the brain on a long-term basis, looping the memory and fear on repeat in the emotional centers while disconnecting from the reasoning centers. In a traumatic event, stress hormones brand the experience into the amygdala with searing intensity, so your brain learns, never forget this danger. The problem is, afterward, your brain can become hypervigilant. It's jumpy, easily triggered by sensory cues that even vaguely resemble the original trauma. Your heart races at a loud noise because it reminds your body of gunfire. You panic when entering a hospital because the smell triggers a memory of a painful injury. The traumatic memory doesn't sit neatly in your logical narrative memory. It's stored in fragmentary flashes of sensation and emotion, which means it can ambush you at any time. In effect, part of you is stuck in that past moment, and your limbic system replays it, flooding you with terror or grief as if it's happening again. During these flashbacks or panic attacks, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. High trauma stress literally shuts down your brain's reasoning and language centers. You feel like you're fighting for survival in the past, even if you're perfectly safe in the present. This is a devastating form of limbic hijack. Your own mind becomes a minefield, where innocent events trigger emotional explosions. Breaking out of those loops often requires patience, therapy, and sometimes the courage to face those old demons head-on, step by step. But recognizing what's happening, that it's my trauma talking, can give you back some power. It's a reminder that the fear is real, but the threat is not anymore. Your mission is to teach your body and brain that truth gradually, so those old trigger-happy circuits can finally stand down. Not all emotional loops come from outright trauma. Many are built through relationships and attachments. If you've ever found yourself sabotaging a good relationship or pushing away someone you love for no logical reason, chances are your limbic system is reacting to old patterns of hurt. Early relationships, especially with parents or first loves, set a kind of emotional blueprint. If you were abandoned or betrayed, your brain might have learned never trust. Get out before you get hurt. Thus, intimacy itself can register as a threat. You might start pointless arguments, become cold, or chase emotionally unavailable partners, all ways of recreating familiar pain or keeping true closeness at bay. In psychology, it's often said, if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. The neuroscience backs this up. We tend to repeat what we know even if it hurts because on a strange level the brain finds familiarity safer than the unknown. Fear of vulnerability or rejection can lead to behaviors that push others away, fulfilling a kind of gloomy prophecy. It feels safer to self-sabotage, to cause a breakup by cheating or to never fully commit, than to risk the uncertainty of genuine intimacy. Similarly, fear of failure can make you unconsciously ruin opportunities so that the known disappointment of underachievement feels more bearable than the unknown territory of success or change. It's ironic. The brain will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven because predictability feels like control. Research has shown that even negative emotional states can become neurologically comfortable. The circuits for stress or failure get well worn, requiring less energy to activate than the circuits for novel success. In simpler terms, it's easier for your brain to stay in the dark place it knows than to venture into bright new terrain. So you sabotage your own progress, retreat to your comfort zone, even if that comfort is just absence of change. The most dangerous place is the comfort zone, but that's where our brains want us to stay, as organizational psychologist Adam Grant put it. Breaking free means deliberately stepping into discomfort and uncertainty, essentially telling your limbic system, trust me, we won't die out here in the unknown, it's okay to grow. Another silent killer in the war within is emotional suppression, when you bury feelings so well that they fester into hidden agents of sabotage. Many of us, especially men taught to stay strong, have practiced emotional suppression as a twisted virtue. You feel sadness, fear, or insecurity, but you shove it down deep and plaster on a stoic face. The result? Those feelings don't actually disappear. They go dark, operating from the shadows of your subconscious. Psychologists call these unacknowledged feelings shadow emotions, and they are often negative impulses like rage, envy, or fear that we refuse to openly deal with. The limbic system doesn't stop generating the signals just because you ignore them. Instead, suppressed emotions can build up until they explode in inappropriate ways. Sudden breakdowns, inexplicable anger, panic attacks, or depression. In fact, living a life that isn't true to your real feelings is the ultimate self-sabotage. You end up making choices that conform to external expectations while internally you're unfulfilled, resentful, or lost. Over time, this gap between the outer you and inner you can lead to anxiety, chronic stress, even physical illness. Studies suggest that suppressed emotions stay in the body, contributing to health problems and relentless mental tension. It's like keeping a lid on a boiling pot. Eventually, it boils over. For many men, especially taught to fear vulnerability, this becomes a tragic loop. Pain is hidden, help isn't sought, and the pressure quietly builds until it drives self-destructive behavior. Substance abuse, isolation, even suicide. The way out is counterintuitive and hard. It's embracing vulnerability. It's admitting you're hurt or scared, reaching out for support, and expressing what you really feel. That takes tremendous courage, arguably more courage than just toughing it out. But doing so frees you from the chains of those shadow emotions. In this war, truth is a weapon. When you're honest about your feelings, you drag those shadows into the light where they can no longer sabotage you from within. You give your rational brain a chance to address the true issues instead of fighting phantoms. Remember, denying weakness only makes you weaker. Facing it makes you stronger. The prefrontal cortex, your inner commander. Amid all this talk of hijackings and primal impulses, you might be wondering, who or what is actually you in this battle? Who is the I that fights against these urges? Neuroscience points to the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the frontmost part of your brain right behind your forehead, as the chief executive, the seat of self-awareness, judgment, and willpower. If the limbic system is the wild infantry, the prefrontal cortex is the calm commander trying to strategize and maintain order. This region is responsible for planning, reasoning, voluntary action, and impulse control. It's what allows you to evaluate emotions and decide on a response rather than just reacting. When you pause to take a deep breath instead of yelling back in an argument, that's your PFC exercising authority. When you stick to your morning run despite wanting to quit, it's PFC-driven determination overriding limbic fatigue. The prefrontal cortex is what makes you human in the highest sense. It's far more developed in humans than in other mammals. It's the part of you that can imagine the future, weigh consequences, and choose principle over impulse. In the brain's power structure, the PFC and the limbic system are constantly interacting, often tug-of-warring. In a calm state, they work together. The amygdala spots something potentially important and signals, say, anxiety. But the PFC evaluates the context and might say, stand down, it's not a real threat. In this scenario, you feel a flash of nerves but quickly regain composure, crisis averted by rational override. In fact, for mild or moderate stressors, a healthy frontal cortex can usually soothe the amygdala, keeping you collected. But as we saw, with a strong enough trigger, the amygdala can overload the circuits and effectively shut the PFC down. High stress is literally correlated with decreased activity in the prefrontal regions. When cortisol soars, your inner commander gets impaired, like a general whose radio went dead on the battlefield. That's when the chaos of limbic hijack truly reigns. One crucial thing to understand is that the PFC is a limited resource, especially when it comes to willpower. It's like a muscle that can get fatigued. That's why after a long day of intense decision-making or self-control, you find it harder to resist temptations in the evening. It's not just moral failing. Your neural circuitry for self-control is tired. This is also why habits are so important. More on that soon. You don't want your PFC fighting the same battles over and over if you can offload some tasks to autopilot. The PFC also develops later and continues maturing into early adulthood, which is one reason teenagers are more impulsive. Their frontal lobes are still training up. But here's the inspiring part. Like a muscle, your prefrontal cortex can be strengthened. Studies show that practices like mindfulness meditation, for example, can increase the gray matter density in the PFC and make it function more effectively. People who regularly do activities that require focus and emotional regulation literally bulk up their neural circuitry for self-control. Moreover, the connections between the PFC and the amygdala can be reinforced so that the rational brain can calm the emotional brain faster in moments of stress. Think of it this way. Your inner commander can learn martial arts. It can get better at deflecting the strikes of fear and anger, and better at deploying countermeasures, like reframing a negative thought or invoking a calming memory, to keep you on track. So while it's true that you're battling a fierce opponent in your limbic system, you're not defenseless. You have a brilliant general on your side, your prefrontal cortex, and with training, it can win more battles and even negotiate a peace between your primal needs and higher aspirations. Rewire your brain, training and discipline. By now, it's clear that willpower alone is a shaky truce in this war. If you rely purely on moment-to-moment self-control, you'll eventually hit a situation, a stress spike, exhaustion, temptation, where the limbic gorillas will overwhelm you. True victory doesn't come from white-knuckling every battle. It comes from rewiring the battlefield itself so that fewer ambushes happen, and so that your higher brain can respond faster and stronger. This is where the concepts of habits, discipline, and cognitive training come in. They are your drills, your exercises, your strategies for transforming your brain from the inside out. The wonderful truth of neuroscience is neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. It can be reshaped by repeated experience. As one neuroscientist famously said, neurons that fire together wire together. Every time you perform a new positive action or thought pattern, you strengthen the neural pathways for it. Every time you resist an old negative impulse, you weaken the hold of that pattern. In essence, you can train your brain like a muscle, forging it into a tougher, sharper instrument. Habits are one of the most powerful tools in this fight. A habit is a behavior that has been repeated so many times that it becomes almost automatic. It moves from the realm of willpower, handled by the prefrontal cortex, to the realm of routine, handled by deeper structures like the basal ganglia. When you start a new habit, say, waking up at 5 a.m. to exercise, it feels hard because your PFC has to actively push against the resistance every time. But if you stick to it day after day, something amazing happens. The behavior shifts into the subconscious parts of your brain. The basal ganglia takes over, neural connections in that region strengthen, and the action becomes second nature. You no longer agonize over it. It's just what you do. This frees up your prefrontal cortex for other tasks and reduces the chance for limbic interference, since there's less conscious decision each time. In military terms, you're fortifying your defenses, turning vulnerable decision points into solidified routines. For example, if you habitually lace up your running shoes right after work every day, there's no open opportunity for your mind to bargain, maybe I'll skip today. It just happens. Science tells us that habits form through a loop of cue to routine to reward. You can use this knowledge deliberately. Choose a consistent cue, like a specific time or trigger for the behavior. Execute the routine, and then give yourself a small reward, even as simple as an internal good job, or a moment of pleasure like a nice shower after the workout. That reward causes dopamine to be released, which in turn strengthens the neural pathway for that habit. Essentially, you're hijacking the hijacker, using the brain's own reward system to lock in the behaviors you choose, rather than the ones that choose you. Over time, the discipline that was once painful becomes almost effortless. This is how soldiers are trained, how elite athletes keep going, through drilled automaticity. As the Life by Leadership study noted, breaking tasks into smaller components provides the dopamine boost needed for continued motivation, and celebrating small wins triggers further dopamine release to reinforce progress. By designing your environment and schedule to favor good cues and immediate mini rewards, you starve your distractions and feed your focus. Another cornerstone of retraining your mind is mindfulness and cognitive reframing, essentially mental exercises to improve your emotional regulation. Mindfulness meditation in particular is like a masterclass for your prefrontal cortex in keeping the troops calm. Regular meditation has been shown to literally shrink the amygdala, the fear center, and strengthen the functional connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. In practical terms, this means you become less reactive and more responsive. Instead of immediately panicking or angering, you develop the ability to notice what you're feeling without being owned by it. You create a slight buffer, a space where the commander can say, "Hold on, let's assess," before the warrior charges. Meditation is essentially practicing the state of calm awareness under controlled conditions, so that in the uncontrolled battles of life you have that reflex available. It's like sharpening your sword in the quiet of the morning so it doesn't break in the heat of combat. Even a few weeks of consistent mindfulness practice can show measurable changes in brain regions related to attention and emotion. Think about that. You can see on a brain scan the new fortifications being built in your mind. That's how tangible mental training can be. Cognitive behavioral techniques, CBT, offer another arsenal. These involve actively reframing negative thoughts and beliefs that drive limbic overreactions. For instance, if a core belief of "I'm not good enough" underpins a lot of your anxiety, every time you approach a challenge, your limbic system might panic to protect you from failure. By using CBT to dismantle that belief, replacing it with "I'm learning and improving and setbacks don't define me," you remove a huge trigger for fear. Coaches and therapists often guide people to challenge catastrophic thinking. "If I fail this, my life is over," and replace it with rational perspectives. "If I fail, I'll learn something and try again." This kind of cognitive reappraisal has been shown to reduce amygdala activity and allow the prefrontal cortex to maintain control in emotionally charged situations. It's like diffusing psychological landmines before they blow up. Each distorted thought corrected is one less weakness for the enemy to exploit. Finally, disciplined lifestyle choices make a surprisingly big difference. Basic things, sleep, exercise, nutrition, hugely influence your brain's readiness. Chronic sleep deprivation, for example, cripples the prefrontal cortex and makes you more emotionally volatile. We've all experienced being extra irritable or impulsive when exhausted. Regular physical exercise does the opposite. It boosts mood-regulating neurotransmitters, reduces baseline stress hormones, and can even stimulate growth factors in the brain that improve neural health. Exercise, in a way, is controlled stress that teaches your body and brain to handle pressure better. It's not a coincidence that many military and elite training programs emphasize intense physical training. It forges mental resilience as well. Pushing your body when it wants to quit is excellent practice for pushing your mind when it wants to crumble. Moreover, exercise increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which supports neuroplasticity, literally helping to rewire your brain faster. Proper nutrition fuels your brain chemistry. The war machine needs good supplies. And social support provides psychological safety nets so you're not fighting alone. Let's put this in perspective. You are the general of your own mind, and you're training an army. Your prefrontal cortex is the leader you cultivate through study, reflection, and habits. Your soldiers are things like your habits and trained responses. The more drills you run, repetition of positive behaviors, the more reliable they'll be under fire. Your enemies are fear, temptation, old trauma, but they are not undefeatable monsters. They are just misguided protectors or outdated scripts in your head. With consistent training, you can turn many of those enemies into allies. The energy of fear can become excitement. The memory of pain can become a source of strength or empathy. Discipline at its core is just bridging the gap between your goals and your habits. It's making yourself do what you must do even when you don't feel like it. At first, that bridge is rickety and every crossing is a test. But each successful crossing lays down planks, until one day it's a solid highway and you stride across with hardly a thought. That is the zone of high performance, when your good choices become automatic, when your mind and body are honed into an instrument for your will rather than a chaotic battleground of conflicting impulses. Forge ahead, victory through perseverance. Understanding this battle on a scientific level doesn't make it easy, but it makes it possible to win. You're not doomed to be a hostage to your limbic system. You're not fated to repeat the same sabotaging loops forever. The brain can learn and unlearn at any age. You can quite literally teach an old dog new tricks as long as the dog is willing to put in the work. It will be hard. There will be days the inner voices of fear and laziness scream like sirens telling you to give up. But remember, those voices are not you. They are just echoes of an older you, a more fragile you, or even a primitive not you that evolved to keep a cave dweller alive. You, the real you, are the one who chooses what to do next. The war within is won in inches and daily decisions to endure a bit more discomfort, to stay the course a few seconds longer, to get back up one more time after falling. Every time you override an impulse to quit, you are rewiring your brain. Every time you face a fear and push through, you're taming the amygdala and expanding your comfort zone. Every morning that you get out of bed with purpose instead of hitting snooze, you're winning a small battle that will echo through the rest of your day. These victories won't always feel dramatic. In fact, the most transformative ones often feel mundane. Choosing a glass of water over soda, opening a book instead of an app, speaking up instead of staying silent. But they accumulate, and as they do, your enemy within loses ground. The once difficult becomes easier. The once impossible becomes attainable. You are at war with your own mind, but it's a war for your mind, for control of the one thing you truly own. No one else can fight it for you, but you are far from the first to fight it. Men and women throughout history have struggled and proven that triumph is possible, turning weakness into strength, fear into courage, and doubt into determination. It's now on you to carry that fight forward in your own life. Arm yourself with knowledge, train yourself with discipline, and show no mercy to the forces inside you that want to keep you small. In the end, the limbic hijack can be defeated not by elimination. You will never eliminate your emotions, nor should you, but by integration. You want your passion and intuition, limbic fire, to serve your principles and dreams, prefrontal vision. That's the ultimate victory, getting all parts of your brain to fight on the same side. When your fear becomes fuel, your pain becomes purpose, and your desire for immediate comfort bows to an even greater desire for achievement and growth. That's when you become unstoppable. This war is lifelong, but every day you endure, every habit you forge, every demon you confront makes you stronger than the day before. Steel is hardened in flame, soldiers are tempered in battle. So don't resent the struggle, embrace it. It is forging you into a tougher, wiser, more resilient version of yourself. The mind is your battlefield, but you are the warrior. And armed with the science of how your brain works and the discipline to put that knowledge into practice, you can march forward and conquer the chaos within. The war with your mind is the hardest fight you'll ever face. But the glory of winning it is that everything in life becomes possible when you are the master of your mind, not its slave. Keep fighting. Victory is in each small step forward, and you're already on the path.